over.
Yeah, let's start all over because this is such a beautiful segment. Hold on, I can't believe I forgot to press record. Okay, it asked me to press twice, so that's why I missed it. So hold on, from the top, ready?
Yeah.
Hello, everybody. This is Elena Garrett, and I'm a real estate agent with Keller Williams Central in the Dallas-Fort Worth area of Texas. And today with me is a very special guest. So this is a recurring guest. His name is KevinStrong. He is from Washington, Seattle, Washington, from Washington State. And the reason that I wanted to record this video is because many of you feel very lonely in your process. When you go through negotiations with the bank, when you feel that you're not good enough to handle this process, when you feel like there is no hope at the end of the tunnel and you don't know what your resolution is going to be and you're just scared, there are no role models for you to really reach out to or to look at. And I wanted to introduce Kevin less than a mentor like he usually appears in my program, and more as a personal story to tell you how you too can overcome your difficulties. So I know a little bit of Kevin's background, but I'm not going to give any spoilers. Kevin, how did you become interested in the whole process of loan modification?
I wanted to learn about loan modification because when I didn't know about it in 2005, this happened to me. My home got foreclosed by the Bank of America.
Okay, guys. So what it says right now is Bank of America auction type foreclosure status not satisfied. So Kevin, is that your actual credit report?
That was my actual credit report in 2005, and my FICO score in 2005 was 492.
492. Oh my God, that is. I mean, I deal with people with 513, 515, and I'm sad for them. And 492 is probably one of the lowest credit scores I ever personally seen myself. So tell me what happened.
So I was in a situation where I was in sales, wasn't able to maintain stable income, had a two-person household that became one person. As a result, I had 4 Chapter 13. So what I was trying to do was submit a formal Chapter 13 plan to the trustee, bankruptcy trustee, couldn't maintain the payment, so they dismissed the Chapter 13, which allowed the lenders, in this particular case, Bank of America, to start foreclosure procedures on me again. That happened 4 times. So ultimately, I had to file a Chapter 7.
Which is a liquidation. So just to let you guys know, if you're not familiar, Chapter 13 is a restructuring of your debts or an attempt to restructure your debts. And Chapter 7 is the final and set chapter called liquidation of your assets.
Right. So I have 4 Chapter 13s, 1 Chapter 7. So that's basically 5 bankruptcies. And my FICO score was below 500. So at that point in time, I said, I don't want this ever to happen to me again. I started doing a lot of research about working with lenders, about credit, about debt, how to negotiate with lenders, spent years doing research.
So you self-educated.
I self-educated myself, spent a lot of time and money educating myself and just reading up on this stuff. So back in 2005, that was ironically the same year Strong, Jacobs and Associates became an LLC entity, and made it a mission at that point in time to reach out to people in the area of mortgage consulting, credit, debt settlement, and debt management, because I'm just a common guy. Clearly, I wasn't born with a silver spoon in my mouth. And I know how all of that feels emotionally to your audience. If you get to the point where there's so much negative mail coming to you that's past due, you don't even want to open it up, because psychologically, that's your denial method of dealing with everything. So
I actually can relate too. My husband lost his job for about 18 months. Okay. I couldn't find a job for about 11 months. So during that period between me finally being able to get a job, we had a lot of mail coming in that said past due, past due, past due. I did not want to open it because it was very hard for me to look at those numbers.
So it's difficult, as you know, firsthand yourself. And there's something psychological. You think if you just put your head in the sand, so to speak, things will go away. But that's the worst thing you can do. If you're behind on your mortgage, or if you're currently in mortgage forbearance, please don't wait until the 11th hour to reach out to your lender. I know it may be a very uncomfortable situation, but the sooner you reach out to the lender to try to work out a new payment plan, you increase your chances of staying in your home tenfold. So for me, it was just a matter of doing the research, understanding what it took to rebuild my credit. And obviously we're moving 15, 16 years up till today. You know, my FICO score is somewhere around 805, 810. I've got well over 6 digits worth of personal credit, not to mention the business credit. So I understand how to come from really nothing to building it up and how that process works. And it doesn't happen overnight, but it's important for you to understand that you've got to reach out to your lenders. You have to deal with what's in front of you. Otherwise, it'll always stay in front of you.
Question, was it kind of a sudden realization on your part that I have to change my direction, or is it somehow slowly built up? Like, at what point you said, I'm ready to stop being a victim and I'm ready to start fighting back?
Unfortunately, it's when I hit rock bottom, when I knew that I was no longer going to be able to stay in the house.
So basically when you realize that all other options have run out, right?
Yep. I had to crash to learn. I had to crash to learn. So I tell people, you can look across the road and figure out that's not the way to go. Because you see an accident across the street. So you don't want to go that way. Unfortunately, I didn't learn from that.
How long did it take you to rebuild the credit to the point where you can actually apply for another loan?
Well, they tell you, you know, if you file a Chapter 7, I think FHA will look at you, you know, within like 2 years or something. If it's a foreclosure, I think conventional is 3 years. And if that's the case, that's not a long period of time. There's a lot of things you can do even after Chapter 7 to start rebuilding your credit. You know, get a secure credit card.
So Chapter 7 is not a death sentence like some people imagine it to be.
Exactly. So the caveat is, you and I aren't attorneys, but I tell clients all the time, if you have the option and you're not trying to preserve a house, of filing a 7 or 13, in my opinion, this is not legal advice. This is educational purposes only. Based on personal experience, I tell people to file a 7, don't file a 13. The reason is because in a 13, you're paying that back, but you're still in bankruptcy status. Creditors know you can always convert a 13 to a Chapter 7. So you're still a risk. If you file a Chapter 7 and just blow everything up, you can't file that again for 7 years. And that's why you see people getting credit cards and car loans 6 months after Chapter 7, because the creditors know that you don't have anywhere to go.
Interesting. I would never think of that.
Yep.
It's another unsolicited tip from, I'm going to start a hashtag called KevinStrong tips. And I'm sure we're going to receive very controversial comments on that from a lot of people on that.
Right. I'm sure the ethical and moral side of to it, but I'm purely looking at it from a financial standpoint. I knew that being in the mortgage industry, like, well, wait a minute. And a lot of times when I have clients now, they're like, well, Kevin, how come I got, somebody can have a 740 credit score, max out on all their credit cards, and they are more of a credit risk than somebody who just filed a Chapter 7. Right.
That's actually, you know, one of those things that you don't think about would be true, but I'm a criminologist by training. And as a criminologist by training, people think that letting somebody out of a prison early, like a murder, is very risky. And I said, murders have the lowest recidivism on record.
I didn't know that.
Yes, if you look at recidivism rates, the recidivism from murder is very low. Because murder is usually a personal reaction to something.
That's true. It's a personal crime. It's not something, a behavior that you're typically going to be repeating.
Right. And therefore, the chances of that recurring, unless there is additional complications, are very low. So people have this conception that if a murderer gets out in the street, then immediately the next day he's going to go back to murdering, without understanding that it's actually the lowest recidivism rate. Now, those stats from a few years ago. But anyhow, that's an interesting tip.
Yeah, so, I tell people all the time, you know, no one knows if you file it. It's not like when you go through a Chapter 13, Elena, or a Chapter 7 that they stamp this tattoo on your head. So
you might feel like it. You might feel like it's.
But no one's going to know unless you tell someone. Right? That's the only way they know, or if they look it up through public record. But you have to weigh your options. So sometimes you may say, hey, do I really want to spend the next 8 years paying all this stuff back when I can maybe go like this and get a house in 24 months? I'm just saying.
You see, during my workshops, because I can watch the faces of the people who are attending the workshop, when I get to the point, so I talk about forbearance, I talk about restructuring, different ways that they can tackle that loan, to the beginning of the loan, to the end of the loan, and then I say, when all things fail, you know, and you cannot even sell because the short sale is not possible due to too many lien holders in this whole deal. Your potential consideration is bankruptcy, and I can see the faces of the people start to drop, because that's the word that they do not want to hear.
That's also a tool you could use to compel a lender during a loan modification process to kind of tip things your way.
Okay, so we're about to do KevinStrong tip number 110 today. So tell me more about that.
Yeah, you have to be very careful, or you can kind of.
This is not a legal advice, everybody.
This is not legal advice. You're kind of conveying in a very general term
way.
You might be exploring some legal options that may protect your assets in the event that the loan modification is not approved. Something to that effect.
So you just kind of hint that you're exploring that as an option, so that give them a little bit more incentive, right?
Yes. Here's another tip. Now this is a gem that's inside of the class, but I'm going to give it to you since you and I have been connecting. So I'm feeling gifted.
It's a friends and family kind of a discount right now. Okay, go ahead.
Go to a bankruptcy attorney, and you may have to pay for this, but ask he or she to write a letter basically saying that Elena had a consultation regarding a Chapter 13 and Chapter 7. You didn't say you were going to file. You just said that, hey, here's my letter with my loan modification that's saying, hey, look, I explored possible legal options before I reached out to my lender, but I hope we don't have to go down that route. That's why I'm coming to you. So let's see if I can get a lower payment.
No, that class, I mean, I think that it's that information in the, and for those of you who don't know what that class we're referring to, so KevinStrong created a course or a class, and I'm going to put the link in the description below. Unfortunately, I don't have time to pull up the website right now, but it's called preventforeclosures.us, where he teaches you all those, how would I say it, creative strategies on getting your way when you're talking with your mortgage holder. So Kevin, are those tips are actually in writing, or do we have to get on a phone and kind of get them,
I have the material inside the course, and I actually have forms, general settlement and release forms inside of the course that are already made up, approved by an attorney. So once a creditor or lender signs off on that, that your rights are protected and you're getting exactly what you asked for. That's all included in the course.
Wow. Alrighty. Well, I promise not to take your course and put it to an evil use, but it sounds like a very interesting course right there. So anyhow, thank you so much, Kevin. So that was Kevin's personal story about why he got into this whole topic of loan modification, and he survived 3 or 4 chapter 13s. And four chapter 13s and 1 chapter 7. So just kind of breathe for a second and say that my problems suddenly don't look all that bad.
Absolutely.
That if somebody could go through that process and come back with confidence to deal with those problems, to solve those problems, to regain his credit score, there is nothing that he's not special. He is just like you and me. The only thing that he did is he stuck with the process. He didn't give up on it. And then 2, he self-educated, which is what you're doing right now. Absolutely. So thank you so much, Kevin. I'm going to see you at the next video, I'm pretty sure.
Okay, take care. Thanks again for having me.
Well, we are at 4:30. We're 1 hour, half an hour over what I expected us to go. So for that,
we're still recording, I think.
We're still recording, but I can always, I can cut the recording to